Now we're going to be getting into our first panel of the conference. We're here to talk about customer service, balancing convenience, data quality, and the human element. Got three great panelists here with me today to discuss that. We'll go down the line and have y'all introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
Howdy, my name is Tyler Rogers from Kraken Technologies. We're a software company that's looking to bring a lot of utilities into the future. Nevada is home. When I come to Texas, I feel like I can continue to dress up like a cowboy, so all about boots and bolo ties here in Texas.
Hey everyone, my name is Ismail. I'm from Alabama. I enjoy coming out to Texas. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, but a couple years ago I jumped ship from engineering over to customer service, and I guess I'm here to kind of tell you a little bit about it today.
Hi, I'm Chad Horton, VP of Development from AES Clean Energy.
Thank you for being here with me today, gentlemen. Aaron, I want to start with you. So at the base level, how is technology changing the utilities' customer service capabilities, and how does that change customer expectations in turn?
Oh yeah, and you know, this isn't something that's unique just to electric utilities or anything like that. I still remember, you know, for those that aren't familiar with electric cooperatives, we were started in the early 1900s by FDR to get power out of the rural areas, just where it wasn't economically feasible to get power out there. So, but nowadays our shift has completely changed. We're a member focused, because we call our customers members. So everything we do is with the member at the focus. I remember maybe 50, I don't remember of course, but I remember hearing about 50 years ago when your electricity was out, when your power was out, you would fill out a postcard, send in your power bill, and let them know that your power is out. Can you imagine nowadays letting your utility know your power's out by sending in a postcard? So nowadays, like utilities, the customers expect us to know when their power's out with all these smart meters that are out there. They expect us to respond. They expect everything to be quicker, because this is, as you guys have heard, the now generation. Everything has to be now. They want everything at their fingertips. They want to be able to use apps. They want to have 24/7 availability. But at the flip side of that, we still have all the members that want it the way it used to be. They want to be able to walk up to our office, have the human interaction, talk to us in person. Because for some of those people, that's the most conversation that they'll get for that day. So they'll come talk to our CSRs, the ladies in the office, and have about a 30-minute conversation just there to pay their power bill. But it's kind of on both sides for us. The flip side from the ones expecting technology versus the ones who just kind of want that human interaction.
That's spot on. I was talking to a utility actually this morning who was asking about our ability to support chat. And they're basically like, some of our customers don't even want to talk to humans. And so like the reality of today is that you have to meet customers wherever they want to be, which creates a tough technology problem for utilities that we have to face. But customers kind of expect that now, that we will meet them. And I love the member analogy that co-ops bring. And I feel like as an industry, we've kind of been on this journey from viewing originally, they were just ratepayers, which is like it's like such a negative way of viewing folks. Then we evolved to customers, and I feel like we're at a next step in that, where I think it's time to start viewing end users of customers as partners, which is a very different types of transaction. And maybe the end point is everyone becomes members. But I like that as kind of the North Star.
And Chad, what are you seeing in terms of the technological shift changing dynamics in the customer service space?
Yeah, from our perspective, you know, our customers want to see data. Obviously, a lot of our customers are both utilities as well as you know, C&I type customers, and what they want to see is that the data, the real-time production of their plant, so that they can incorporate that into their business and into their future planning.
I think building off of that, data is so powerful depending on how it is used, and it's a matter of trying to unlock that. And I think part of the answer to this question too is using data to inform and meet customers and the expectation and experience that they want now. And I've got one example of it. Who in here knows the top 100 song that was on the billboards the year that they were 14 years old? Probably no one, but you should Google it. And the idea that, like, one example of how we're using this to create a richer customer experience is that when you call into your utility, the hold music is now that, When you know a customer's birth date, you can customize the experience that they have. It's traditionally a negative experience. No one really wants to be on hold. But when you flip that and use data to create a completely different customer experience, we now have customers that are like, can I just go back on hold? I really like that music. Like, that was a very different experience than I was used to. And I think that's what customers are expecting now. And it behooves us in this industry to sort of meet that expectation.
2007, I think it was Pond to Replay by Rihanna. I'm not sure, though.
I Googled mine this morning. It was Share Believe.
Wow.
And you can actually customize it. If you don't like that song, you can pick one.
Nice.
So,
Chad, I'm going to throw it back to you. We were talking about how chat bots and the like. There's and stuff on the phones can cause automate the customer experience. But what do you see as some of the current limits of automation in creating a satisfying customer experience where we need to introduce the human element?
Yeah, sure. For us, again, serving customers by delivering them renewable energy solutions, we absolutely have to have a human interface whenever we're trying to solve problems, right? If they've got an issue that they're trying to describe or fix, we have to be in the room. We have to be able to talk about that. We have to be able to whiteboard out what is really the problem to arrive at the solution. And then secondarily, anytime we want to innovate upon something or improve upon something, we have to really understand the customer's needs, concerns, where do they get upsides, where do they get downsides, so that we can incorporate that into the innovative solution or structure that we come up with.
Actually, can you give me a little bit of insight into that whole dynamic of the utility customer coming to you for a solution on their customer side? Like, I got to imagine there's almost a game of sort of telephone happening. How do you best align your objectives there?
Yeah, through conversation, because it's and you sort of see it go two ways. Whereas often the utility side of the business is going to be very cost focused, right? And so only to the extent can we meet their needs with the least cost solution is that a utility favorable outcome for the most part. However, on the other side of the fence, when we're dealing with sort of C&I customers, there tends to be a little bit more wiggle room in there. Whereas if we can provide them, for an example, a firmer product than just the as generated renewable energy resource, they might be able to pay a premium for that. Whereas the utility, they have that sort of firming capability on their own, so they're just looking for the input of the renewable piece of that. So it's really about having that conversation to identify exactly what are the needs, what are their pain points, and where can they see that value, where can we add value to arrive at a solution that works for both sides.
And Aaron, where do you see the most need for the human element in customer service for utilities?
Yeah, and Chad hit the nail on the head a minute ago. Essentially, whenever there's an issue, because we have member consumers, and I mean this is, like I said again, beyond the utility world, where some just want to have zero touch points. They just want to be able to get whatever they need done and be done. But if there's ever an issue, and whatever automated system that's in place isn't able to handle that, that's where we really need somebody to be able to step in and help the member consumer get whatever they need. Because if somebody just gets off the phone frustrated because they couldn't get their problem solved, that's where everything goes south. So the technology is great because it's able to, you can, meet people where they are. You can handle many more calls. You can take many more payments. But then when things go wrong, you have to have the humans behind it to be able to step in. Like if we're working on actually implementing a chatbot, we were waiting till they were more advanced, because before we looked into them a decade ago, if you misspelled a word, it couldn't tell what you were saying. So if you misspelled payment, then it would kind of throw you out until you need to call in. But nowadays, they're a lot more advanced. If you misspell a word or even type it in a different language, it can figure out what you're saying, that you want to make a payment, and then process your payment. But if that doesn't work, you want a human to be able to step in to take over that chat and then be able to help solve the customer's needs and problems. But it's because every single industry is going to have issues, but it's how well you handle those issues and resolve people's problems that translate directly into the customer experience. Because I don't know if you guys have ever been on you call an automated line, and then you just sit there and say, operator, 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 because you can't get to a real human being, but the automated systems can't understand what you need or what you want, or, option 3 doesn't really get you what you need. You really just need to talk to a person to explain to them what you need. And if you've ever flown and had an airline delay, you know what I'm talking about.
I think we've all been there. And I feel like this starts to open the topic of AI, and I'm just curious, inside of the utility, as you're looking at automation and now a further level of it, like, what are the conversations inside the utility about the willingness to adopt some of that as a tool?
Yeah, so we're looking at it from data analytics to start with, because AI is really good, and as probably everybody here in this room knows, is AI is really good at finding trends that might not be apparent to humans, but you need a human to interpret the data and figure out how to apply it best. So we are working on getting a local instance so we can take our member data and put it in through an AI engine, but as it is right now, we can't obviously load, because anything you put in, say, like ChatGPT is just like uploading it to Facebook, for example. So a lot of our vendors are doing the same thing. They're working on getting these local instances so that they can try to use AI on their data and try to see what is there. On more of a local level, some of the things I've seen that we'd like to implement, say like 10 years ago, there's a rudimentary version of where when you call in, it would recognize your phone number, automatically pull up all your information for the CSR, the customer service rep, so that they would know. So take it a step further, now that we're in the broadband business, because we're an electric utility, we've started a broadband business as well. Being able to use the data, the marketing data that we have available to us, to where if somebody calls in, it can tell a CSR, they might be interested in this product or that product to help them sell the additional service that we do with the broadband. On the electric side, it could show them what their most recent experience was, like if they were on our website, what they were searching for. So then hopefully the agent would be able to tell them, if somebody was interested in electric vehicles, for example, they're on our website, they're doing the comparison, then they had questions, they called in, the CSR could see that they were just on our website looking at electric vehicles, and then, immediately go into a conversation about that, rather than having to send them to, say, somebody who's more knowledgeable at the co-op about electric vehicles. But that's kind of where we see AI going.
I think it's just a great example of this question around the bounds of automation, because I think what it comes down to is, like, technology should make our jobs and the jobs of people that are serving members or customers easier. And so this example of, like, using automation or AI to offer an agent information to then create a richer experience for that customer feels really spot on. I think, like, fundamentally, technology should make the job easier so that the strength of a human is to have empathy for our fellow humans. And at our best, like, technology should enable that and should enable a customer service agent to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, and, this isn't the AI panel, that's tomorrow, but I do got to say, when we're talking about...
Sorry.
No. I would say, like, there's, like, what you're talking about there is kind of something kind of existential to me as an editor, something that is likely to be replaced by a chatbot within the next decade or two. But, so I'm just letting my bias out there right now. But like, yeah, when you're talking about the automation of these things, and we're talking about the human element, how do we keep that idea of what you're talking about focused? The idea that, like, I talked about the smart meter at the very top, and how, like, no one really needs to be going into people's backyards and getting chased by their dogs. So the smart meter just, like, frees up a lot of time for those field workers to do other things instead of replacing them, which is great. So how do we make sure that we're implementing these automated services that with both the idea of keeping the humanity of the customer and their needs in mind, and not eliminating jobs in our communities, the humanity of our communities and our workforces?
It's so true. And I think, like, one paradigm that we've seen when you add automation to customer service is that there's a bunch of ability to self-serve or get the answer yourself up front. Your interaction with the customer might actually be longer than you're used to. And so this metric of, like, I want to reduce my call times, like, there's a debate that needs to happen of, like, is it worth just reducing call volume or time if the call that happens is more complex and creates a happier customer. Because I think these are the types of metrics we have to start to ask ourselves and be comfortable with when the call that gets through is really complex, because all the automation has already gotten and sort of through the easy questions.
Yeah, that's it. Talking about the complexity and the AI, because for our agents anyway, they have to know a lot of information. Somebody told me at one time that we were doing one of these tabletop exercises, and they said, to become a lineman, it takes years of training, but to be a customer service rep, it might only take like a week or so, something like that. But what he didn't realize is that the breadth of knowledge that they have to know to be able to answer the phone, answer any question that can come across, because we shoot for a one-call resolution, so we hope that whenever you call in, you can get your question answered. We don't have to transfer you to somebody else or anything like that. The problem with that is that it takes a while to train those people, about 6 months of training to get that breadth of knowledge, and that's just the bare minimum. From there, then it takes maybe another year. So 18 months in, somebody's finally able to pretty much answer most any kind of question you could answer for us, the electric or the broadband side nowadays. But if they had an AI that was also listening in on these conversations, then the AI could pull up the information at their fingertips, because a lot of times, somebody will call in, ask a question that a CSR doesn't really get that often. The first step they usually they'll go to our website, because our website's filled with information. They'll go to our website. It's a good resource for not only our internal reps, but also external. But if they had an AI that was also listening, they could go ahead and pull up the information that the person's asking about, jog their memory, and then help them with that conversation that they're on the phone, rather than them having to find it on their own while the person's waiting for an answer. So I just see it as a way for them to do their jobs quicker and enhance that customer member experience.
Totally, and like the training you allude to, like it's one thing to learn utilities. Then historically there's been like 7 different screens you have to jump across that creates a subpar experience. And it's time to think about this and enable those agents that are at the front line in a different way, and technology can do that.
Yeah, and we similarly view AI being just disruptive to the positive side of the thing, first creating significant amounts of additional renewable demand for us to serve, and secondarily not disrupting jobs, but rather whatever it is that the AI can do, that just increases then the scale with which the humans that are doing the balance of the work are available to execute. And so we very much do not view it as taking someone's job, but opening up bandwidth that can then be backfilled to increase scale.
That's good. Yeah, I guess if I'm understanding you right, we can sort of synthesize that down to the idea that the automated technologies are supposed to increase productivity rather than reduce labor costs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Definitely.
So when we're training, when we're training people, when we're training AI models too, and when we're doing customer service in general, we need data. We need quality data. So, Chad, I'll start with you. How can utilities and designers change or set their organizational processes to best facilitate a long-term customer journey that maintains human connection? And how do you create data ecosystems to take advantage of that?
Yeah, no, it's probably a good question for our ops side of the house. I do work on development, but I think just generally providing the real-time feedback, with respect to the customer information that I receive from an operating wind or solar plant is really critical to their utilization of that data. So quality data in real time is key from my experience.
So yeah, Aaron, you work at a co-op. So I assume some of the ways that you collect data can be a bit more direct. But yeah, how do you guys make sure that the people that you're talking to and your customer service workers have easy data access and good data?
Yeah, and earlier you mentioned we've talked about smart meters, and you talked about the smart meters earlier. But one thing that the smart meters provides us is a whole host of data that's available at our fingertips. If we can take that data and put it in a meaningful format to where if one of our customer service reps is on the phone with somebody, and we just experienced this in January and February where people were calling in with high bill concerns. We call them high bill concerns rather than high bill complaints because, we didn't do it. They turned their heat down. They turned their heat heat up, rather, to heat up their homes, make them comfortable. But if that data is right there, and we do have this, we have the data right there at the fingertips, so that if somebody calls in and said, hey, my bill is extremely high, I haven't done anything, then we can look in the data and say, well, you used a lot on January 4th and 5th. And they said, oh, well, my kids were back in town that weekend, so yeah, they probably jacked it up. And then they kind of understand. So if you can give them real-world examples rather than just, estimating or speculating why their power bill's high, you can actually read the data and give them, examples to help them manage their energy use, because that's one of our big goals at the co-op, is to help our members manage their energy use. One thing I've always said is that at a co-op, it's a little bit different being at a co-op. The co-op world is vastly different than the investor world. And people that come from the investor world come into a co-op. I tell them that our end goal is to help our members use less of what we sell, which is counterintuitive for a for-profit business. If your goal is to have your customers use less of what you sell, you're probably going to go out of business very quickly. There's a reason why the for-profit business model exists. But for us, if we operate just above cost, so anything above cost, that means we've charged our members too much. So we use this data to help our members, show them, we send them monthly emails, a breakdown of their bill, so they can actually see and help them use their energy more efficiently, I guess you would say. Like basically putting it in their hands, because we have it on their mobile app. All the data that we have access to is available in their mobile app as well.
Can I jump on this as well?
Oh, go for it.
I mean, I think the problem with data is almost a self-created issue. It's because data has been historically siloed, and that's just been the way in which systems have been procured in this industry, is that you buy A, B, and C systems, and then you have to translate the data across those. And that has created its own issues. So your example of like a high bill concern, not a complaint. Like you have to pull data from your MDM and get it into your customer agent tool, and then there's probably a different tool to show it to your customer. But that creates, that's an unnecessary problem around data these days, but it also creates data quality issues. And the way to solve that is to, as much as possible, have a singular data model that sits across technology. And that unlocks so much different value of, like, you don't have to have these translations. And like anyone that's lived through a new technology implementation, especially a CIS, can relate to hundreds of different integration points that data has historically made difficult, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah, so your sister company is an energy provider, correct? And so how and you work closely with them, how have you seen them create efficiency in data usage in the customer service space?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, Kraken Technology is a software platform who happen to be part of this larger company called the Octopus Energy Group, and within that, there is actually an energy retail business called Octopus Energy. So they are using Kraken to run their business. And so it's an interesting situation because we have a sister company that can be sort of a proving ground. And obviously I've been talking about a singular data model. Kraken has taken that approach. And so Octopus is able to tap into that singular data model to create the same experience, because when the source of data is the same as the MDM, it's the same as the customer portal, there really isn't a data quality issue because it's the single source of truth. And it has allowed them to then create and empower data engineers to tap into that to create amazingly rich customer experiences. And I mentioned one, the idea of like hold music. When you have your birth date, then you can do things like this. But you can also create very innovative tariffs. Octopus Energy, for example, is using the power of data across this singular system to offer no-cost EV charging when it's vehicle to grid. They can monetize that in the UK. They have this concept of zero-bill homes. They're optimizing across all the devices in a home and monetizing that, again, in the UK market to offer no bill to a customer. These are the types of like offers that a customer is like a no-brainer because it's customer-led value, but they've been able to use, in part, the power of a singular data model to enrich and create these sorts of experiences.
So I've got a couple more questions, but I guess first I just wanted to probe the audience for any questions. If you guys had something you wanted to ask about customer service or convenience, data quality, and or the human element. Looks like no one. Oh, wait, yeah, and please come up to the mic.
How do you guys use crowdsourced data, like surveys or stuff that the customer actually provides that data to you, and have you found it to be valuable?
Yeah, I can start on this one. So as I said before, being in a cooperative, we're not profit-driven at all. So the key that drives us is customer satisfaction, member satisfaction. We put out these member satisfaction surveys that go out there, and those metrics really drive what we do because we get metrics for outages, customer service, new service, and our vegetation management, and then of course the general consumer as well. But what we get most out of it is the comments that people leave. And usually when I get that data, because I'm an engineer by trade and they send the data in spreadsheets, so I'll start filtering. I filter by the people, because it's out of a 10-point scale. I'll filter on the ones that have given us a 1, for example, and then I'll start reading all those comments. And what I found, people are really surprised that we actually read all the comments that we get. They think that these comments just go into some black hole, and then usually if there's an issue, we'll actually call the member and see what we can do to fix the problem, address it, and they're actually really, really surprised that we even picked up the phone or even read the data to even pick up the phone and call them. But we do more than those. So those are our member satisfaction surveys. We also, like communication.
Wait, before you move on, how are those surveys distributed?
So that's another thing that's changing. We used to actually, we have another cooperative that does those surveys for us. They're called Cooperative Insights. They used to be done via phone and via email. Now it's, I think 3 years ago, switched to just email. So it goes out, we do a random sampling. We even send the survey to people who've been disconnected for non-pay because, we value their opinion as well. So the survey goes out and people click on the survey, and typically people, when they click on a survey, it's because they're mad about something. They're not happy. But fortunately for us, we have a lot of people that are really happy with what we're doing. They'll actually click on there. And when we, of course, started our broadband business, the comments were filled with, when are you bringing it to me? When are you bringing it to me? But now that we've finished our broadband deployment, it's more or less stuff that we can actually use. A lot of it's very positive. But yeah, it's just email that goes out. We do surveys as well, like our broadband business, for example. We do 2 separate surveys with them. One is when you have the broadband service installed in your home, we send out a survey 2 weeks later to see how the install went, and by area we can see like if a tech's underperforming or something like that. Fortunately, that has not been the case for us yet because we really install the cooperative values in everybody that works at the cooperative, and so any issues that we have, we can jump right on it. We read the comments and then we actually go through there. But some of our other data, like outage data, if there's blinks or outages, that's where we were talking about AI earlier. We might need an AI to help us identify trends, where we might need to focus our vegetation management efforts and that kind of stuff. But there's surveys and data galore in the utility world.
What do you find your response rate is to the survey?
So we might have, because we serve 47,000 endpoints, we might have 600 to 800 people reply to our surveys every single month. When we did the broadband, we just started with our broadband surveys because now we have 16,000 broadband subscribers. We started in February polling those, and normally it's done on a quarter basis, but we had so many people reply. We had all the data we needed after 1 month, even though we're still waiting for our quarterly score. But we've scored really, really high again because we're bringing the cooperative values into the customer service arena.
Nice.
I think the other bit of crowdsourcing, we've talked about the customer, but I think the human element, I think everyone knows if they're engaging with a human that's having a bad day. And that means that you need to poll your customer service agents as well. So that pull of information, because if they're not doing well, then your customer's gonna have a negative experience. And so it's equally important to crowdsource and survey on a frequent basis how your team members are doing and to allow that information to be easily accessible for team managers.
Yeah, I use that a lot, especially when, like those high bills I was talking about earlier. I'll ask our CSRs, what kind of things are you hearing? And we'll have a database of things they're hearing so that we can share with everybody else so that they'll be prepared to answer those same questions.
And now AI can be used to say, what is the trend, right? Like
That's
it
right.
can make that task easier because you can transcribe the call and use AI to say what's happening across my calls.
That was a very good question. Yes, sir.
Hi, this is very interesting, kind of thinking ahead a little bit. This guy, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, he's telling us that the hackers are already into all of our infrastructure. It's just a matter of when and where. How are you preparing for long-term or widespread grid outages?
Whoa. Cybersecurity question.
I can talk to that one too, unless you guys are ready.
You're the utility. Let's start there.
Yes, please.
So 20 years ago, cybersecurity wasn't even really a thing you even talked about. Nowadays, cybersecurity is right up there with AI. Every single conference I go to, there's always AI, cybersecurity, and now it's like cybersecurity with AI. That's why I thank our IT department every single day for all the stuff they put us through. All the passwords, the two-factor authentication, the expiring passwords. It's a pain, but I tell them thank you, because it really is making us safer. We've had sister utilities, sister co-ops that have been infiltrated, and the bad actors, they'll wait till a hurricane's bearing down on our system, and then they'll shut down every single one of their systems and demand a ransom. This has happened. Luckily, though, all of our vendors are really on top of this subject, so every single one that I'm aware of with the co-op space anyway hasn't had to pay a ransom, because not only do they have their systems back up, but they have everything separated. For example, 15 years ago, I used to be able to operate our SCADA system because I was in engineering. I used to be able to operate our SCADA system from home. We put a stop to that, and everything has an air gap in between. You know, we have to drive all the way to the office to operate the SCADA system. And all those operations type systems have been completely separated from the business systems. And even in the front end systems, don't have any customer data. All that's behind the firewall. So we had an issue with one of our online portals where you go do your bill payment. Ours wasn't compromised, but our vendor's online portal was compromised in another utility. We, that day, upgraded to the newest portal, but it's still, they didn't get anything. All they did was shut down the portal because the back end was still there. But the biggest thing we can do, we've talked about, is the human element, because all these bad actors have really gotten in by somebody clicking on an email or somebody plugging in a USB drive, which we're not even allowed to use USB drives at the office anymore. There's none of that. But really, it's just employee training to teach them, be very careful on emails that you get. Don't click on something, because that's really where this stuff gets introduced. But also scrubbing your systems fairly regularly is a really good way to get rid of it. But like I said, I was in engineering, now I'm not, but I rely on all these systems every single day, because I just couldn't imagine before a hurricane or major events about to hit our territory and a bad actor come in and shut down all the technology that we rely on to restore people's power is just gone. So then we have to revert back to the way we did it, 20-something years ago, where you'd print off a whole bunch of lists of paper where people have called in and said their power's out, and you just have stacks of paper around. And this happened back in 2004. It wasn't a hacker, but the software couldn't handle the amount of outages we had from this hurricane. We had to revert to the old way to do it. But our biggest concern is just the member data not getting out there.
Yeah, and we have just so you know, we have a panel tomorrow, the increasing complexity of cybersecurity, where we're going to delve a lot more into a lot of this. And if you are in contact with Mr. Ray, see if you can get him to come to the panel. We'd love to have him. All right, any other questions? All right, then I would like to ask each of you, what have you seen on the ground from your company or the ones that you work with that is instructive in finding opportunities to change the status quo in customer service? Whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to give an example of experience in customer service, and it's with my local co-op, Pedernales Electric, also known as PEC. I really find their outage interface to be really powerful in that first I can submit the request via text. Instantly there's a map that shows me how many others within the area are affected by the outage and an estimated wait time. And then once there's actually a crew on site, it tells me how many people are on site. Like, I don't go check, but it definitely, just keeping the customer informed, I find that platform to be really, really beneficial.
I'm going to jump in. I think the theme here is imagine. And so I think what technology should empower or allow utilities to do is to imagine a completely different way to serve your customers. technology for too long has been sort of an obstacle to transformation and change. And so a lot of the customers that we're seeing that are adopting platforms like Kraken are reinventing how they actually do customer service. No longer does there need to be a front office and a back office. An agent should be able to handle any question that comes in with a customer on the phone and not say, I need to transfer you to another team. So a lot of our customers are adopting this idea of universal agents. There's a group of, and this is pretty common actually in the co-op space, and oftentimes because you only have so many, you only have one pot of members, but typically like 10 to 15 customer service agents are serving anywhere from 50 to 75,000 customers. And if you repeat that, then you have a team that holistically can handle any question that comes in. And that's just one example of reimagining how you can do customer service when you have technology that can empower that. Like for too long, technology has been an impediment, and sort of we've had to design business around the limitations of technology. It's like that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, for us, it's about engagement and communication. Because like one thing you mentioned, Chad, about outages, for example, if the only thing we're communicating to our members is negative information, it's all just, and I say negative, anytime there's an outage, that's viewed as negative.
Or when it's back on, I kind of know that.
Or when it's back on, but still, if like our social media was just filled with, okay, we had an outage here, we have an outage here, we have an outage here, then people think, wow, they have a lot of outages. But we try to fill it more with positive stories, positive things that are going on around our community and that kind of stuff. But what we start with is our employees. If we can get an engaged workforce by keeping them informed through communications, then they'll in turn be able to send all that information, feed all that information to our members to get engaged members. And what we've seen from all the studies, if you have engaged members that feel more like they're part of the co-op, they tend to rate you much higher on the member satisfaction surveys, for example. So, and that's what we hope to do, basically to meet people where they are. For example, we have these payment kiosks around. What I'd really like to be able to do to bring in the utility space is where if you have an issue at the kiosk, be able to press a button, have an agent come up to be able to help you. Like you've seen at a lot of credit unions. Credit unions have jumped on this. There's credit unions all over the United States that have this technology. It doesn't exist yet in the utility space because of those technological hurdles. I'm like, I've been working for 2 years to try to bring it in the utility space, but it's just not there. So, but that's just a small example of things we've been working on trying to bring it.
I think that engagement is spot on. I mentioned this journey of like ratepayers, customers, partners, and members, and I'm like, obviously members historically are sort of like actual shareholders in the co-op, and I'm curious, are there other tools beyond like ownership that you've found to help get to that level of engagement? Because like a decarbonized grid requires a deeper level of engagement, and I'm just curious, like, why are co-op members so much more engaged? Is it just because they get the dividend at the end of the year, or like, what is the secret sauce?
No, for us, we listen to our members, we do what they want. We didn't want to get into the broadband business. We were perfectly happy serving electricity. Our members most of our territory is vastly underserved with broadband service. So our members said, we need broadband. We tried to find partners that would partner with us, but we couldn't find a single partner that would guarantee broadband service to every single one of our members. They wanted to, because they're investor owned, they have to pick and choose where it makes most sense, where they can make money. But for the cooperative model, that's not the way it's done. You have to get everybody the last mile. So we decided, let's jump into the broadband business, and we guaranteed every single one of our members, we're going to get you broadband service. We initially said 5 years to give us a little bit of cushion. We did that in 3 years. And now we have the customers of the investor-owned utility, Alabama Power, close to us. They're saying, well, what about us? You guys just care about your members. And our answer is, well, but you can thank them, because now you're going to have broadband service in your small rural town as well that's not served by us. But that's one thing. Our members, it's kind of like a resurgence. Back when we ran power out to the farms and whatnot, we're doing the same thing with broadband, and this broadband has created that engagement with our members. They see that we listen to them, we provided them a need that they wanted to do, because we're not in the broadband business for profit at all. We're taking the money that is made and reinvesting it into the broadband and running it out like fiber out to the middle of nowhere where it's not economically feasible to run the fiber, but we're able to do that using that cooperative model.
All right, Aaron, Chad, Tyler, thank you all for joining me for this panel. Let's give it up for our panelists.